time to get started. So welcome to the, welcome to UTS Open Day, because it's quite likely that this is your first session for the day. This is the student experience session for the Faculty of Design, Architecture and Building. My name is Luke Chess. I'm the marketing manager for Design, Architecture and Building. So you don't want to hear too much from me. Who you do want to hear from are our three panelists. We've got Charlotte, who is from the School of, an alumnus of the School of Design. We've got Nick, who is a first year student with our School of Built Environment. And we've got Noor, who is, I believe, a postgrad student with our Faculty of Architecture, School of Architecture, I should say. Just before we get started into the good stuff, I do want to just acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. That is the people on whose ancestral land our city campus now stands. And it's also where I am coming to you from here in Sydney's inner west. I'd like to pay respects to elders both past, present, and indeed emerging, acknowledging them as the traditional custodians of knowledge for this land. You should be aware that this webinar is being recorded. That is mainly to allow it to be accessed by people who can't make the session today. But what that means is that anything that's shared via audio or screen, or screen share, I should say, will be recorded. Your video will not be recorded. It's really for teaching and learning purposes, to share questions and responses that might be applicable more broadly. And as I say, to build an online text catalogue of questions and answers. It's quite likely that we will also post this recording to our website. You should be aware that that information will be used for those purposes. So for example, if you ask a question in the chat and we answer it, we're obviously referring to you and your question, and that may be recorded. If you do not wish to be involved, there's an email address there, marketingprivacy@uts.edu.au, and we're happy to discuss how and when any information is likely to be used. For those of you who are less familiar with Zoom, this is a Zoom webinar, so it's similar to, but not quite the same as a Zoom meeting. You won't be able to turn your cameras on, but if you have particular questions, please ask them in the Q&A box. And it'll be my job to scour that and feed them to our each of our attendees. So yeah, please feel free to use the Q&A box for any questions, and we will do our best. I'm going to stop share at this point because we don't really have a horrible PowerPoint. Rather, we've got what I hope will be a really interesting session, as I say, with our three panelists who I should get on and start talking with right now. So welcome. Hi, Charlotte, Nick, and Noor. You might like to come off mute at this point, and we'll get started. So first up, I'm sure a lot of people listening are quite interested in potentially a number of different courses within our faculty. Charlotte, what made you choose the course you chose, which I believe was product design?
Product design, yeah. So I did D&T in high school, and I really loved it, and I loved I guess a lot of the skills that were really germane to product design. So there's a lot of drawing, there's a lot of making with your hands, and it's this combination of, I guess, creativity and problem solving that sort of comes together and manifests in like a physical product or a product service system. And it was just something I was really interested in. And so I kind of moved towards this course, and I ended up at UTS because I was actually from Perth originally. I came up to Sydney to look at the facilities here, and I was just really blown away by the particularly level 2 in the design and architecture building. We've got this huge workshop full of workshop equipment and facilities and 3D printers, laser cutters. So the facilities to me were what really brought me to UTS.
Awesome. I am moved to note that we actually have a facilities tour webinar at, I believe it's noon today. Yes, noon today. So if anybody else is interested in checking out the facilities, alas, only virtually, given that we're currently in COVID lockdown, but our facilities manager, Greg, and I will be taking you through a facilities tour at noon. Excellent. Nick, You chose UTS. I'm sure there was a very good reason. Would you like
Yeah,
to tell us?
so I chose ETS because it's actually pretty convenient for me compared to some other unis. But I also chose it because I love the food court. It's pretty nice down there. So whenever I come to class, I always head down to the food court straight after class. And I also chose my course because I'm really interested in construction and stuff like sustainable construction. I mean, it's the future for in the construction industry.
Yeah, so it's not simply the kind of hows and whys of construction for you, is it? I mean, there's actually you do start investigating the kind of ethics and issues around sustainability and climate change, for example. Is that right?
Yeah. So for me, I've only just started to learn it. Like, I'm on the brink of like learning some parts of it, but I'm sure we'll go into deeper depth in future years or
Yeah.
semesters.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
And of course, for anybody who's listening who isn't aware, there are information sessions on every one of our undergraduate degrees throughout the day. Do check the main Open Day website, and there's a full timetable of a variety of different sessions. Noor, you've completed your undergraduate degree. What was your favourite thing about it or about studying at UTS?
So I studied landscape architecture. And I guess my favorite thing is actually when I picked landscape architecture, I didn't even know of the course. And what I wanted to get into was architecture, but I ended up falling into landscape architecture. And then I wanted to change after a year, but then within that year, I didn't want to change anymore. And I kind of started to enjoy just the things we were learning about. And I found that there was a huge connection to nature. And I've always been into nature, but never really came across a course that kind of showed me how to connect our everyday life and public spaces to our knowledge of nature, and then things like climate change, sustainability, and so on. So I really enjoyed that. And what I loved about my course is just the variety of things we get to learn over the years, and you really get to find the niche that you want to work in and what you're really interested in. And so over the course of the 4 years of my bachelor's, by the end of it, I found out where I really wanted to go in my practice and what I really loved doing there. And I just got to meet so many amazing people along the way, and I had like a lot of support from my tutors. And I feel like I would not be where I am without the support of those tutors and the people that I've met. So that's what I really enjoyed about studying at UTS.
Yeah,
and I've also wanted to get into UTS, so that as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, look, it's an amazing thing, and I hear it from a lot of undergraduate students. And in fact, from many, many years ago now, it was my own experience in undergrad. You know, you start off with one idea of what you want to do, but as you learn more about a particular discipline, often you can find that your interests kind of perhaps not change completely, but, you know, maybe get a little finessed. So, yeah, that's really interesting to hear that journey. And yeah, no wonder you chose the green grass background there with your interest in nature. Yeah. In studying it at UTS, or more specifically our faculty, design, architecture and building, I mean, what's an average day in the life look like? Nick, why don't we start with you, because your average days have probably been sitting in front of a computer at home for quite a bit of it, unfortunately, due to the impact of COVID.
Yeah, so recently in my average day, it's basically just sitting in front of the computer, listening to lectures for an entire day, but it's only 2 days a week for me, so that's not too bad. But last semester, I actually got to go into campus and do, I think, only one subject in person. During that average day, I'd have quite a lot of group work because construction project management requires a lot of group work. Just like in the future in the industry, you'll need to talk to a lot of people, work with a lot of people. So yeah, that's basically it for me at the moment.
Yeah, one of the things that the faculty does pride itself on is a focus on group work, which of course mirrors real life, right? You know, very few of us work in a silo. Once we go out into an industry or community, we have to deal with stakeholders and teammates and the like. So yeah, good to hear that it starts very early in your first year. Noor, Charlotte's already kind of touched a little bit on facilities, but you know, the lectures, facilities, and indeed the whole community at the faculty. How have you found that?
Pretty good actually. So I spend a lot of time at uni, and I didn't think that I would spend that much time, but I usually literally even come in at the weekend, and I spend my time in level 4 in the master's room. Basically, there's the computer facilities. I use the computers because sometimes you gotta use the software there, and my laptop doesn't really handle big softwares. And if we need to do models and so on, we can go downstairs to level 2 and just build models, use the CNC and the laser cutting. So I really find those things useful for me. But yeah, basically just spending my time at uni, and I find that working in an environment where everyone is around you is kind of more easier and less stressful. So I enjoy that kind of communication and then that social life there.
Yeah, fantastic. Now you've got some images to share, I believe. Is that right? Are you able to share those, or did they not come up?
They didn't come up. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. I imagine that would have been some of the work you're most proud of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in terms of that though, you get to work in virtual spaces, 3D modeling and the like, and then you also do some actual hands-on modeling. Would that be right?
Yeah, we do. Like just to show ideas and just modeling our designs.
Yeah, and do you get a chance also to work on live projects for industry? Is that a part of the degree at all?
So we don't get to work on live projects, but sometimes they kind of make a studio with like a company. So in my second year, we were working with Aspect Studios, and they were helping us and teaching us on how to design urban design spaces.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's what they kind of do, but it was still very useful to kind of get to know a big company like Aspect in a discipline. So
Yeah, great. Yeah, we have a very close relationship with Aspect, and indeed as a marketing manager, I've met some of the Aspect folks. They're big fans of UTS and our faculty. So yeah, great. Nick, changing from university to from high school, I should say, to university, it's a bit of a kick. I'm pretty old, but I remember back in my day, the kind of sudden independence is quite a big shift. How have you found it?
Yeah, like just like you said, shifting from high school to uni, it's been a sort of a big difference because you have to be more independent in your learning, and you have to be more responsible, especially your time management during COVID. Like no one's going to remind you to do your assignments, homework every week, or even go to the lectures. Like if you don't go, they're not going to care. So you have to take responsibility of your own learning and take it into your own hands. So that's probably the biggest difference. Yeah. And also there's a lot more group work compared to uni, compared to high school. So touching on that again.
Yeah. Well, again, we're trying to build little communities here, and in a sense, the people that you study with now can be part of the beginning of your professional network as you move into the real world. So yeah, I think it's quite a deliberate focus. Indeed, not just within our faculty, but across UTS. There's quite a focus on group work and industry connections. So I'm glad to hear that you're experiencing that. Life after uni, of course, is another thing. Charlotte, how's life for you since you completed your degree at UTS?
Oh, well, to be honest, I think the one thing that I wanted to say about life after uni is I suppose that especially in a design field, the learning journey never really ends. And it's something that kind of just keeps going. And so at the moment, I'm actually involved in two research projects. The main one is, and this is also because I never really did postgrad, but I still wanted to there was still some research projects I wanted to do. The main thing that I'm doing now, so basically what I'm saying is I still feel like a student somewhat. I do a little bit of freelance work, but I'm involved in two projects. The main one at the moment is in the startup program at University of Sydney in the research stream. And so it's just sort of taking everything that I learned at UTS and applying that to this. I guess it's sort of a business, but it's more geared towards research. But and I guess what Nick and Noor, mostly Nick, touched on as well is that there's a lot of collaboration and a lot of working in teams. So I'm doing everything I've done post uni, and a lot of what I did in uni as well is really collaborative work when you're working with a team, and that's something that continues on into your work life as well. So at the moment, I'm working with a multidisciplinary team, and that is both something that can be really tricky, but also something that can be really, really rewarding. So it's a really great challenge. And I guess just having that mindset that when you leave uni, the learning journey sort of never really finishes. Every time you do a new project and you're with a new team, there's so much more to wrap your head around, especially if you're doing the design work. You have to be really open-minded all the time and always open to like learning new things and taking on board new perspectives and things like that. So it's always a challenge, but it's always really good fun.
Fantastic. I've seen a couple of questions arriving in the chat. Ideally, if questions can be asked in the Q&A channel, that will allow us to capture them for future use. But of course, I'm very happy to throw these particular questions to the group. Charlotte's just done a little bit of talking, so we'll give her a break, and I'll ask Edie's question first. Interested in interior architecture, but also interior design. Well, actually, this is a question that perhaps no one on the panel is particularly qualified to answer. Noor, you probably didn't have a lot of experience with the interior architecture folk in your course?
Not really. I done one elective where I was with interior architects, but I don't know much about it.
Yeah. Edie, I would strongly advise you to go to the interior architecture info session, where they'll be more than happy to answer that question. I know that interior design and interior architecture have a lot of overlap, so my guess, but I'm not an academic in that subject, is that there would be quite a bit of incorporation of interior design components. We look at things like architectural lighting, for example, which is very much an interior design issue. So I expect the answer to that is yes, a lot. But if you go to the interior architecture info session on later today, that's where you'll get that question answered. Charlotte, back to you. Sylvie's interested in product design, and she's asking what kind of companies UTS allows you to work with. I know that we've had relationships with both IKEA and Breville. Yeah. I don't know whether you've personally had a chance to work with any of those. Who else are you aware of?
Well, I guess in terms of industry placements per se, it's a tricky one to answer. So most of that isn't done through the university. There are internships, like you said, Luke, we have like a good working relationship with IKEA every year, and they offer internships, and also they do a really fun, I don't know if they're still running it this year, but there was this really fun IKEA course that you could do through UTS as an elective. But generally speaking, I suppose it is up to you as a student to take the initiative, and you sort of start building your portfolio as you move through university. So every year, all of your major projects, they become material for your portfolio, and then you can take that portfolio onwards and go to these sort of, like, you can go to consultancy firms or sort of in-house, out-of-house companies to work with, if that makes sense. But it is really important to get work experience, more so in like the later years. I suppose it's more important than in second and first year, but I can't stress enough that it is really important to get that work experience. And what we do in third year is a really helpful course called Professional Communications, where they sort of take you through the building of the portfolio with all your stuff from uni and reaching out to companies. And I have had tutors sort of help me recommend, based on the kind of design that I was interested in, recommend firms and companies to reach out to, or particular people to reach out to. But it is still very much something that overall generally is up to your discretion, your initiative, if that makes sense. but they're definitely here to help you and support you through that process as well. But that second part of the question, with extracurricular workshops available, yes, there are a lot of electives. So you'll do your fundamental product design courses. There's one on product engineering, there's one on human-centered design, there's one on UX design and all that kind of stuff. And then you, in second and third year, you get electives, and these are electives are where you kind of get to choose those other extra things. But what you've listed there, glass blowing and woodwork, those are things that we don't really offer at UTS. Our design courses, I guess if you kind of think of woodworking and glass blowing as like a craft skill, the courses that we do for product design at UTS, they're more around the type of design and the design thinking. So for example, we do a furniture elective where you may want to incorporate a wooden component that needs woodworking skills, but your tutors that you work with and the technicians that you work with at the workshop will kind of help you plan that. And so it is very self-led, the actual skills that you will learn. But you do have the support of UTS. We don't have the facilities at UTS for any glass blowing things. I know that, I can't remember what uni it was, if it was UNSW or somewhere else, they have those facilities, but we don't have that stuff. Actually, glass is pretty strictly prohibited from our workshop because of health and safety. But there is furniture design as an elective. There's also lighting as an elective. There's also a slip casting course as well, where you sort of work with some sort of ceramic that you mold and make a slip cast of and things like that. But I guess the emphasis is more on the area of design and the type of design than the particular fabrication processes.
Yeah, fantastic. I do notice that there's a question about construction project management. Nick, from your position 6 months in, you might not be completely across the program in detail. And in fact, Jonathan, I'd strongly encourage you to go to the information session specifically for project management. But Nick, can you give us a bit of an overview of what construction project management is as you understand it and offers?
Yeah, so I can give a brief overview of the subjects that I've currently done so far from my last semester. So we've got our basic introduction to construction industry subject, and then we've also got construction technology, which teaches us about the different processes used in the construction industry and the types of classes of buildings. I also did a built environment law and ethics subject, which touches a little bit on law. And then I've also done built environment economics. That was a bit of a confusing subject, but this semester I've started doing digital built environment, which we start using Revit, which is a program that we'll probably use in the industry. I think architects also use it. And what else am I doing? I'm also doing my second subject for construction tech 2 and materials science, and as well as sustainable urban design and development. So I've only just started these couple of subjects, so not entirely sure about what they're all about yet. But yeah, like Luke said, if you go to the information session, you can find a lot more info that I can provide at the moment.
Yeah, great. Thanks. While we've got you, Nick, someone's asking with construction project management what companies UTS works with. Again, you're fairly early on in your degree, but are you aware of any at this stage?
Yeah, so I believe if you come in like the top 10 or something, there's a company called Richard Crooks Constructions. They're a top tier 2 company, and they'll come after these top 10 students and then try like maybe hire them. I'm not entirely sure about the processes yet, but yeah, so I think we're kind of involved with Richard Crooks. Also through this association I'm part of, which is Built Environment Association, we have a bit of we've been working with Taylor and then also Richard Cooks to provide some of the student experiences. We've had on-site tours and seminars, which are coming up as well. Those are the couple of main companies that we've been working with recently.
Yeah, great. And our researchers also do work with Lendlease, Stockland, and many other large property companies. So I would expect that at times opportunities, even at the undergraduate level with those companies, would exist. Thanks for the question. We're running very close to the end of the session, folks. Some of these questions are very much about a detail of degrees. And I would really encourage you to go to the relevant degree information session. Cheng, yes, the workshop we're in at the moment, and in fact most of Open Day today is used for bachelor's and undergraduate's degrees, but if you're inquiring about postgraduate, please do drop us an email to the address I sent. There's also a question around product design providing a pathway into UX design. The answer is, in short, yes, it could. And indeed, any of our design degrees can, because there's a core basis of design studies that allows that. Visual communications is another one where a lot of UX designers can emerge from. And indeed, there's also some postgraduate offerings in service design that could be very useful for UX as well. Anything to add there, Charlotte?
I mean, we do a really great course. I suppose in the undergraduate product design degree, they want to give you a little bit of an introduction to everything, as opposed to just focusing in on one area very soon. But there's a really great course that they do in second year that's about UX design, and that sort of kind of initiates you into that whole process and how that works. And it is really, really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. There's a question in the chat about the design courses, more exam or project-based. They're much more project-based. In fact,
yeah, definitely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Charlotte, I don't think we have any exams for the design degree.
No, I think I did one or two short tests, and they absolutely were not exams. So it's all portfolio-based.
Yeah,
so it's a lot of work, but you leave with a big portfolio of things to show for it at the end of it.
Yeah, so to be really accurate, I guess it's possible that you might choose to take an elective, perhaps from another faculty that would require an exam.
Oh, yes.
But yes, the design course is much more about projects and collaboration than it is about passing exams. I'm afraid we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions because we're right up against our time limit at the moment. But I did just want to hear from each of the panelists about a final piece of inspiration, if you like, for anyone in year 11 or 12 who's wanting to study with UTS and with our faculty. Noor, we haven't heard from you for a little while. What's your final piece of inspiration?
I think go for it and just follow what you want to do, and there's always a path in uni. And if you do get into university at UTS, just enjoy your time there because it really goes by so fast and you're going to miss those days that you were in.
That's great advice. Nick, how about you, mate?
For me, don't worry if you can't get the ATAR you're desiring, because for me, I didn't get it, but I still found an alternative pathway to get into my course. So yeah, just don't worry too much. There's always a way.
Yeah, fantastic. And just on that, there is a presentation today from UTS College, and they are specifically set up for people who are looking for an alternative pathway than the usual ATAR, and well worth a look if you're concerned that your ATAR might not match your aspirations. Charlotte, I'm giving you the last word, just because that's where you appear on my screen.
Fantastic.
Any last words of inspiration for attending?
I suppose my sentiments are a bit similar to Noor's. Really just make the most of your time at uni, because it's a really fantastic period of time where low risk, really high reward. You can just take risks, be really experimental with all your projects, just take full advantage of all the support that they have there. Don't stress too much about marks, because if you just do your best and throw yourself really into it, you'll do really well and you'll have a really good time doing it as well, and you'll learn a lot. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'd like to personally and on behalf of UTS thank our three panelists today, Charlotte, Nick and Noor. Thank you for making yourself available and for generously giving us your time on a Saturday. It's been great to hear from you, and it's been great to even for me to understand a little bit more about the student experience. To those listening, there are plenty more sessions and workshops on throughout the day. Do check the timetable on the main website and come along to anything that you're interested in. Thank you all for your time and your attention, and enjoy the rest of your day here at UTS, virtually.
Thanks for having us, Luke.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm going to
Thank
shut the session down now, folks. So yes, on to the next thing. Lovely to meet you all virtually.